Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I want to say to you and to the ranking member, thank you so much for the way you're approaching this work. To me, as I sit here, I think about all the teachers across the country that are teaching right now, including teaching the 3 Bennet girls in the Denver Public Schools today, and the work that they are putting in. And the fact that this Congress, not just this Congress, but a sequence of Congresses, have been unable to fix this law for now 7 or 8 years, while they are doing everything they can try to do to drive student achievement, is a national embarrassment. And it is my hope, and I know that the ranking member, the chairman, feel the same way, that finally this time we can get a result and we can actually make a small contribution to actually driving achievement in this country. Everybody in this room should bow down to Ms. Moore, because there isn't anybody in the country that has a harder job than somebody who's teaching in a high-poverty school. I can tell you the members of this panel don't have a job remotely as hard as the job that she's doing. Yet we have been unable to fix this law, and it is time for us to do it, because the stakes are really high. I mean, all of you have touched on some elements that have made it better for teachers in this country. If you've got a great principal, that helps. If you've got a committed faculty that is rowing in the same direction, that really helps. If you're paid respectfully, that helps. But we're swimming against the tide. I think the chairman raises very important questions about who's responsible for what part of this. And I agree that's something that we ought to work on, but as a nation, whoever's responsibility is, we have fallen down on the job. You know, we have a system of training teachers, of recruiting teachers, of hiring teachers, of giving teachers professional development, of paying teachers, that belongs to a labor market that discriminated against women and assumed that we'd get the ones that decided not to be nurses. You know, and it was the likelihood was that you'd get the best British literature student in her class to be a teacher. But that likelihood is gone, thank goodness, because many people, women, are able to do many other things. And the idea that somebody's going to come and teach for 30 years at a ridiculously low compensation compared to what anyone else in her college class would be paid for the benefit of a pension that's not going to be there 30 years from now is completely illusory. So here's what I'd like to ask you guys. If this country really wanted to attract the best folks in their college class to teaching, what would we do? Would we say to them, if you come and teach in a high-poverty school, your student debt is forgiven, you don't have to pay us back? Would we pay starting teachers dramatically more than we pay them? There's a lot of attention paid to whether we should get rid of lousy teachers, and I'll stipulate that I think we should get rid of lousy teachers. But we don't spend any time, or very little time, on the question of how do we deal with the fact that we're losing 50% of the teaching workforce in the first 5 years of the profession. That's not going to result in good outcomes for our kids. So I would just turn it over to the panel. Anybody who'd like to answer that. Ms. Moore, I'll call on you first.
Well, I would just say that there's obviously...
And I will bow
Thank
down.
you. Thank you. There's some inherent goodness and want in teachers to work in schools and to work with students. That's always been something that I wanted to do. Growing up with a dad as a teacher, and then I actually had my mom, who's here today, as a pharmacist. And for a while, when I was at the University of Washington, I was going to pursue pharmacy because that did look more... okay, I'd get a better pay and whatnot, but I deep down always cared and wanted to work with students. And I would just say that, like, from a teacher standpoint, the reason why teachers maybe aren't staying and we're seeing retention problems in my school is because they're feeling so overwhelmed by all of the stuff that we're trying to do. So we talk about a kid can come into the classroom, but the moment they walk in the door, some kids have a complete disadvantage compared to their peers. And so I know that in my school, sometimes we feel like we're doing the job of a social worker and a teacher, and I'm constantly trying to support that whole child, because until I can have them come into the classroom and feel like they are ready to learn, they've been well fed, and they feel safe, that's a whole job in and of itself beyond teaching.
Dr. Goldhaber, I'm almost out of time, but do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, ultimately, I think that we need to do things to elevate the status of teachers, and that in this country, one of the ways that status is established is with salary. So I think that salary is a real key, and I'm a data-driven guy, so I would urge you to take a look at research on the Teacher Equity Project charter school in New York City, because I think that they're doing some interesting things. And what they're doing is they're paying starting teachers a great deal of money, at $125,000, and they're doing it within the existing school budget by reallocating other resources in the school. And the initial results from the study of the Teacher Equity Project look very promising.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.